Good evening, and welcome to the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Waterloo Community School District. Welcome all of you here this evening, and please join me in a moment of silence to begin our meeting this evening. Thank you. And now I'd like to welcome Troop 28 forward. We're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Young men, will you come up here and join me for that, please? You guys just come right down here.
Up here in front.
That way we can get you on camera.
Turn this way, boys, so you can see the flag
All right,
here.
here we are. You guys ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. These fine young men are working on their badge, citizenship badge, and so they are here this evening to see public government in action. So we welcome them, and thanks you guys for helping me. That's a nice big group to say it with us. We're going to start this evening with an exciting thing. We have a new mission statement that Angela Weekly's going to read before we go to that new exciting thing.
Old mission
An old
statement.
mission
Sounds like it's not a new mission statement.
Thanks. I got so excited.
The Waterloo Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to assure that each and every student will graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship as evidenced by continuing education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to a community.
Thanks, Angela. I appreciate it. Now we're going to move on to something new and exciting. We have a new partnership signing this evening, and it is with Lowell Elementary School, and we have several members here this evening represented. So Carol and company, if you'd like to come forward. And there is a little button right there that if you hit it on, it should turn green on your right side. There you go, that one. Perfect.
Super. Thank you so much for letting me come and address you this evening. We have been really fortunate to have some wonderful new partners that have agreed to work with our students at Lowell. And so I would like to introduce two of them that are here this evening. One is Erin Potter, who is with Dick Witham Ford, or Automobile Services. And do you want to come up, Erin? And we have a certificate of recognition that Erin can take back and share that with Jason Witham. And we're really excited to have them as part of our partnership, and I'll let Erin say a couple words.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me this evening. Look forward to it, and it'll be very exciting, so thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. And then next I have Jill Elders. Jill is the manager of Hometown Foods in Waterloo, and I have shopped there forever and ever, but finally had the courage to talk to Jill about becoming a partner. And with no hesitation, she said, absolutely. And so we're so excited to have her as one of our partners and all of the employees at Hometown Foods.
Thank you. We're looking forward to getting to do stuff with you, and I have a bunch of high school and college age employees who are all excited about journaling with first graders. So we're excited.
Great.
Two representatives that couldn't be here this evening is Bob Greenwood with Greenwood Pharmacy. Bob is in Washington, D.C. doing important work there, so that's why he couldn't be here tonight. And also the Waterloo Bucks. And unfortunately, they didn't have a representative that was available this evening. So I will make sure that they get these certificates. And again, thank you for letting us come and share our good news with you.
Great. Thank you. Jill and Erin, we really appreciate you being here this evening. Thank you very much. It's very exciting when we bring new partners on because we're always looking for ways to get our schools and our community working together, and we certainly appreciate your time tonight to be here and look forward to a very fun future with you. And also thank you to Greenwood Pharmacy and the Waterloo Bucks what a cool thing. Maybe they can go see a game and be fun. So, great. Thank you very
And
much.
I also want to thank Jill and Hometown Foods that they recently let the Ultimate Frisbee Club at West High have a grill out there for a fundraiser, and it was extremely successful. So they support on many levels. So thank you, Jill, for that too.
Thank you very much. Anything else from anyone? Great. Okay. We're going to move on then. We have a board celebration for Character Counts Week. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education proclaim the week of October 19th through the 23rd, 2015 as Character Counts Week in the Waterloo schools. And a second? Thank you. With that motion on the table, we have been very, very pleased and privileged to have the Character Counts Committee partake and be involved in lots of our buildings. Our buildings use the 6 pillars in many of their daily activities. And we are, unfortunately, I know we had someone that was supposed to be here from the Character Counts organization who couldn't be with us tonight. But we are happy to accept that and make sure that we proclaim a week from now as Character Counts Week. So I don't know if any board members have anything further to add on that. But I know when next time we see Bruce Clark, we can definitely thank him and his group for all that they do, because they do a lot in our schools, and we're very happy to sign this partnership with them tonight. So,
And I think just for the public, if they don't understand or don't know much about character counts, I think it would be interesting to read the pillars. Character counts is really based on 6 pillars that really talk about the character that we would all agree we should all have, whether it's adults or students. So I'm just going to read them. Trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. So they're really things that match our mission well, whether we're talking about helping kids be good citizens, helping them have career opportunities, helping them understand the academics. So they fit nicely with our mission and our vision and certainly everything we do.
yes, and the final point of that is that urging our Waterloo schools to become aware of the importance of community-wide character education and show support for the positive character development of the youth in our community. All things that we can agree on. So very happy to sign that this evening. Is there anything further from board members?
No.
With that, all those in favor of approving the Character Counts Week, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. That takes us on then to item C on page 6, which is the proclamation for October is Anti-Bullying Month. And I believe that we have Ms. Turner here. Yes, this is just for information only, but I thought you might want to say a little bit about it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you know, Waterloo has always participated in the National Bullying Month. We've done a lot of activities in our district. We put a newsletter together already to go out to families. We put a calendar out to each building, allowing them to tell us what activities they're going to put forth, and at the ending of the month, we'll bring a report back to you. We also have National Movie Month scheduled. The proclamation has been around to the other various closed cities. They've signed it, and tonight it's our turn to join into that theme of getting everything signed.
Great. Is there anything else that anyone wants to ask Ms. Turner? I think it's very important. I know that just getting it out on the radar for people to know that bullying does happen and that we're making it aware. It is certainly something, as you said, that we've always, as a district, participated in. But I appreciate your efforts in getting it out to our schools and to our parents, because that's a really important piece.
And I would encourage parents, if you're near your students' building, stop in. There's some exciting things that's going on, and there's a lot of neat activities that we're doing during National Bullying Month. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Cora, for getting it on our radar. With that, then, we will move on to information from individuals and delegations. Is there anyone here this evening that wishes to address the board? And if so, please come forward at this time. All right. Well, seeing no one, We will move on then to our, not that we don't see anyone, I see you all sitting out there, guys. I mean, seeing no one coming to the microphone, let me be clear. Then we'll move on to our consent agenda, which this evening consists of 4 items. It begins with item D on page 8, the minutes of the September 28th, 2015 regular board meeting, personnel appointments and adjustments, bills due and payable and bills paid between board meetings, and a cooperative sponsorship agreement. Are there any items that any of the board members would like to have pulled from the consent agenda?
Item G.
Item G? Great. So can I have a motion then to approve the consent agenda items D, E, and F, or to get that motion on the table first, please?
So,
And a second with Angela? Great, or however you guys want to wrestle it out. Great. All right. Then all those in favor of approving the consent agenda items D, E, and F, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. That takes us then to item G on page 22. And the recommended motion is the Board of Education approve the attached cooperative sponsorship agreement.
So moved.
And a second?
second.
Thank you. And now discussion.
I saw Dr. Pappas here, so I just was wondering for the public if we could maybe give how these agreements work with the schools, what kind of participation we have. I'm sure certain sports are higher than others, and just kind of the positiveness that this comes with the cooperative agreement.
Yes, we have several sharing agreements in place already, and one of the agreements that we're reinstituting tonight, or hopefully reinstituting tonight, is with Waterloo Christian, and we share most of our sports or activities, even including band and things of that sort, with Waterloo Christian. About 2 or 3 years ago, they wanted to go on their own with the girls track program, and they did. They ended our sharing agreement with girls track. And then this year they wish to come back with us and be a part of our girls track program. So we're kind of applying to reinstitute that sharing agreement. The Independence sharing agreement is brand new to us. It is for boys swimming. They feel they have just a couple of boys and they do not have enough for their own program, and so they've contacted me and applied, and we've got everything in place, just waiting pursuant for the board's approval to then set up the sharing agreement with the state for boys swimming with Independence. We also already share boys swimming with Union, Columbus, Waterloo Christian as well. And of course now this year, for the first time ever, Waterloo East and Waterloo West are combined.
That's great.
Typically, do you get many students from the schools we share with, or is it a sparse number?
It's
Or
a sparse number most of the time. Columbus, usually in the neighborhood of 2 to 4. Waterloo Christian, very small, 2 to 4. I'm imagining that would be the same with Independence, in the area of 2 to 4. In another sport, boys soccer, we have one with Wapsie Valley. We have a sharing agreement with Wapsie Valley just because they have one student that wanted to do it, and so they drive from Wapsie every day to have an opportunity to play soccer. Same thing with girls soccer. I think we have one. So there's usually not that many more students, but it just affords them an opportunity to participate.
right, I think it's great that we do this because these kids then get a chance to participate in a sport that they normally wouldn't be able to. So, and girls.
Yep.
So,
Right, and we're just waiting for Ultimate Frisbee.
yeah,
Once
that's
that-
right.
Once that gets out,
She's
gonna
hopefully
get
we
that.
have a sharing agreement.
That's right with all the schools.
Well, we won't because they're not a sanctioned event.
Right.
I was just joking.
Get that in there.
Yeah.
No, and I agree that it's a great thing. And I know my own boys have been privileged to be on teams with students from other schools, and I just think it's a great thing. They love having friends that go to different schools, and I think it is a great service that we're able to do. So, thank you, Dr.
Any other
Pappas. So,
questions?
I just want to give you a chance.
yes, since you came, yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So just to reiterate, it's with Independence, it's the boys swimming program, and with Waterloo Christian, it's the girls track program. So I should have said that before we started. So thanks, Dr. Pappas. I sure appreciate that. All those in favor then of approving the cooperative sponsorship agreement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Then that takes us to the next item on our agenda, which is for information only. It is item H on page 25. It is student handbooks, and we have that information up here at our, already. We have them. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about them, or they're just, we just have them. It's good to know. They're from all of our schools, so.
Our handbooks each year come before our board of directors for approval. We want to make sure that parents are aware of the information and our guidelines and rules. On the elementary levels, we actually print books, send them to each building. We also put them on the website. The book is also on our district website. That is the K-8 book that you have.
Yeah.
Then you each have a high school book also from each of the high schools. We feel it's very important that they be on the websites so parents will have that access to review the books at that time and ask any questions that they can.
And I know, having a high schooler, that this thing, they carry it around. They really do pay attention to it. They use it. It has a lot of valuable information about policies. It has different things regarding the different class periods are delineated. There's a lot of information in here. It is a great resource for parents as well as students when they use them. So,
I do have one question. I see that the code of conduct is in here in more than one language.
Yes.
And I know that we do have 2 other languages specifically where we have interpreters for that. On the website, are those other languages available, at least for the code of conduct?
If they're not, I'll make sure that they are.
great point, Angela. Great point.
Robert?
Go ahead, Jesse. I'm sorry.
Yes, are there very much variation between the 2 high schools in terms
No.
of their planners? Look like there was, I know the outline's a little different, but policy itself, are they pretty consistent?
They are very consistent. At the beginning of the year and toward the end and beginning, we actually, my office sits down and go through the handbooks with each person at each building to review our policies and procedures to ensure that we're asking the same questions and answering the same way for each policy. So, very similar.
I noticed that you have events in the West High book and not in the East High book. Is that something that we could get a little more consistence with?
I will make sure that that's passed on and looked into. Yes.
We talked about that last year at this time, that it used to be in both the books and
Yes.
it got dropped. And I see that West has brought it back, but I think students would use it more and pay attention a lot more and maybe attend more events if they saw them in their planner.
That's great.
I will make sure that's passed on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this will be our light reading for later on. We got a few of them to get through, so thank you, Cora. Appreciate that. Anyone else have any questions for her? Good. Well, then that takes us on to item I, which is on page 26. And the recommended motion is the Board of Education approves submission of the request to the SBRC for $778,139.91 in modified allowable growth to provide 100% spending authority for 2015 actual LEP program costs, and that this increased allowable growth will be funded by 2016-17 cash reserve levies. And a second? Thanks, Jesse. And then I'm going to turn it over to Michael Coughlin.
Well, in interest of a couple new board members, do a little crash course on budget and
For
where
sure.
this is all coming from. And just for clarification, in the motion, I probably should have put for spending authority for 14-15, just so you know this is for last year.
Right.
The way that we normally call it ELL, English ESL
learners.
is second
Yeah.
language. They also refer to it as LAP, and I use that just because that's the
That's
title
their-
that the state used on the report that follows this. But I'm going to say ELL because that's what I'm used to, saying. So our budget is based on, we get so much money allocation for every student. And for this year, let's go back to last year. For last year, it was $6,366. So every student is weighted as one. But there are special circumstances, and ELL is one of those, that we get extra weighting, actually 2.2, not 0.22. So 6366 times 0.22 added to the 6366 is what we get for ELL funding. So when we provide the services for ELL, it's based on the number of kids that are identified from the year before, and we get 0.22 funding for that. But then also, when the school year starts, more than likely we have additional kids that show up. Well, we don't actually receive the cash for that, but we receive the ability to count those kids in December and send it into the state and say, we're going to have to educate those kids. Can we have the authority to spend money for them? So it really comes in two pieces: what we identify the year before, what we identify with the kids that walk in the door that fall. And that gives us a budget to work with. Well, because of the requirements of ELL, and Dr. McNulty can get into that a whole lot more if you have questions about what we are required to provide as services, it always costs more than the money that we have. So in this case, if you're looking back at the exhibit on page 27, we actually had revenue based on $1.35 million, and we spent $2.1 million. So the $778,000 represent what we spent over and above the revenue that we had available through the weighting. So what the SBRC School Budget Review Committee, they have the power to review district situations and say, because of this required service for ELL, we're going to allow you to spend more, and we will give you the authority to spend that money. And then for us to make that amount whole with dollars, we add that as additional property tax next spring when we approve the budget for 16-17. So it really comes a year late, the money, but it backfills the money that we've spent. Now, I know it's hard to comprehend this whole process of authority and counting and enrollment. It usually takes a few different examples and a couple years to get the hang of all of this. But that's the mechanism that we use, the budget process, that we get to count the kids the year before. We get extra weighting for when the kids come in the fall. And then at the end, when we've overspent, and it's pretty consistent that about 15 of the most diverse districts overspend. 15 to 20 has kind of been the rule of thumb in the last several years. So it's not all over the state, but we are one of those that have a diverse population that we provide a lot of ELL services, as you're very well aware of the diversity in the district. So what this does is it's a motion for the board to say we approve the request to go into the SBRC that we did overspend the budget, the revenue by $778,000, and that you're committing as a board, then when we do the budget in the spring, you will add that amount of money in cash reserve to the tax levy. So we can put cash to the actual expenses that we incurred.
And Michael, just another point, it also makes sure that then that growth that we have, because districts are held to not spending more than the allowable growth, we claim that allowable growth as well.
Yes.
Correct?
We not only, that's what the SBRC grants when we send it in after this motion, that they give us the authority, and then we backfill it with cash.
With cash. And is it also true, and this might be a question for Mr. McNulty, is it also true that we in our district does guarantee, I believe the state it's 4 years, but we oftentimes are providing services for our ELL students well beyond that 4 years? Is that correct?
Well, actually, there's been some changes at the state level, partly due to the Department of Justice and Department of Office of Civil Rights involvement with the Department of Education. And so, for example, this last year, we had to go back, and students that we had exited, we had to reassess because there was some concern that regarding effectiveness of instruction. Now, we can say that our results were good, but I think we had to reassess 12, but for example, Des Moines had about 135 students needed to reassess. Language acquisition is really a 5 to 7 year process. And, young people can fool us by a quick verbal acquisition, but the complexities around the English language are many. As a native English speaker, I can speak to that with my 10th grade experiences. But, part of that is also that, as the state of Iowa is working with a growing diversity in population, we're also looking at how we're funding. So, for example, we're at 0.22 in the state, but the national average is 0.39. And so even at that level, there's certainly, right now, a lot of involvement in the Department of Education is setting up a standard of effective instruction. I would like to say that Amy White, who facilitates, has done an amazing job this year of creating a strategic plan focusing on specific instructional techniques. One is called shelter instruction, where that there's targeted within the English language, but there's also targeted within their native language. And so, long story short is, it is a long and complex process that 5 years is probably the target.
Well, I'm glad we're there for those kids for that 5 years. It's important. Angie, go ahead.
And I was just going to send this an email, but since we're on the question, I had 2 coworkers ask me about when their siblings came in at like kindergarten level and what that process looks like to be placed either in regular ed or in ELL. So so I'm hearing that there's a lengthy process. Is there one at that beginning level as well?
Certainly is. And, it's also dependent on the education the child had prior to coming to our district. What we find, especially for some young people from Central America, is that they didn't access formal education. And so that also changes how the instructional approach needs to happen. But regarding kindergarten, there is a language assessment that's given. But ELL should be looked at as a service that occurs within the general education population. And that immersion with that support is the key. And that's the work that Ms. White's doing. And we've had work also down in the pre-K level.
You mentioned that other states have 0.39. Are we just doing a better job, more efficient, or are there other states that are more in need?
Progressive. They're giving more.
There's a reason the Department of Justice and the Office of Civil Rights is working with the Department of Education in Iowa.
Okay.
The average is
To increase that.
To increase that,
Okay.
and to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all children. And I could say that our professionals here have worked hard. And I will say also the Department of Education has worked very hard to work with a corrective action plan. And they are, in fact, I will be going later this month to look at and work with the Department of Education in this process.
And I think what Dr. McNulty said is absolutely spot on, and I would, and maybe I can include it in my Thursday update to you, but there was I think it was back in 2013, the legislature commissioned a task force to address this and to make recommendations. And there's a link online where you can go to look at what their 8 recommendations were, but one of them was to increase funding from 0.22 to 0.39 over like 3 years or something, to increase it a little bit, and to pay that for 7 years versus the 4. And so they did not increase the percentage, 0.22. They kept that the same. They moved from 4 to 5, I think, and then that was it. So they did a little bit on the length. So now you have 5 years, and some kids, 5 years is sufficient, and other kids 7 years is, sufficient or not. So I just wanted to add that too, because I think the state did not. Well, it's a funding issue, but it was definitely recommended to move toward 0.39, but that has not happened yet.
And it's interesting to note that they increased the number of years of
They
service
did.
of ELL, but they have not increased any funding.
percent, right.
And the number of students has increased also, so.
Right, and I think I saw too that the state average is like, most districts, I mean, the average is like 4 to 5% of their population, and I believe we are upwards of 11 to 12%, so we have about 3 times, the percentage-wise, of students. So I was just talking to a superintendent in a neighboring district, and I asked a question about ELL students, and that superintendent said they had two students who, so it's a little different, and we're proud of our diversity, and we're happy to serve, and so
And
this is
my
important.
question for you, Michael, is you said about 15 of the larger school districts that have the program.
It's not all the larger ones. There are some that, I'll use the example of Postville. You
yeah.
know, they're smaller, but they have a very diverse population. So it's not purely on size.
Correct, but what I was wondering as far as how much are we consistent in overspending the budget with the size of our schools, of our students and that type
It
of thing?
varies a little bit, but with, the reason I've had some experience with it is it wasn't until 2 years ago just an action by the board. It was an appearing before the SBRC and basically arguing your case. Well, before that, it was automatic. They just did it with whatever you were over, and then they started looking at it. I'm sure it was because of this task force of saying, well, what is really going on? Why are some of these so over? And just the interviews that I sat through listening to other districts, the SBRC members were just amazed at saying, we have dozens of languages that we're dealing with and the number of kids. And so it was 2 years of appearing before them. And then they just said, no, we found out that it's really a necessary process. So now we're back to just, I used to have to fill out like a 6-page report and appear before them. This year I print it off from the CAR and fill in 2 blanks and submit it. Otherwise, they take all the information as valid.
May I ask, how are we collaborating with business and industry? Because as we know in English language acquisition, the family is really critical to how that works. Because I notice we have 90 Marshallese students in our school district, and I would have to imagine that a lot of this has to do with recruiting from business and industry. And seeing as how the school district will be supplying the workforce, I wonder, how do we work with those students and their families to help improve the English language proficiency in the home? Or is that something that we consider? Because that helps to improve English language proficiency.
That's an excellent question. I think that I would say that the churches do a lot with new immigration, and I know that our schools work closely in hands with some of the churches. Regarding business, I think there's real opportunities in the future as we look towards some of our initiatives that are on the horizon. But we find a lot of our young people are the families that are working and they're connected to their new employment, but they have yet to make that connection to the school, employment to school.
Because I hope as our policymakers look at decreasing some of our education funding and incentivizing business and industry, hopefully part of that incentive, those incentives would include working with the school districts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's well said.
Great. Yes, definitely. Anything further for Dr. McNulty or Mr. Coughlin? Great. Thank you both for answering all of our questions and giving us that little, we always need a refresher a little bit when we see this one, so appreciate that. All those in favor then of accepting the submission of the request to the SBRC for allowable growth costs in excess of revenues, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. The next item on our agenda is item J on page 29, and it's board policy changes, and it's number 507.6 for wellness. And this is just for information only this evening. It's our first reading, but I would invite Tara Thomas up to give us a little background.
Good evening. So Dr. Debbie Lee oversees this wellness policy. It came up for review this year, so it's gone before the committee to just update the language, as is the case whenever there isn't a specific change around a policy. So the only items here would be adding in that this entire school environment supports wellness, and that particular line of not just the classroom, to solidify that. If you look down near the bottom here on the first page of the policy, just to tweak the language that the board would receive an update on an annual basis, and then the policy as a district is reviewed every 3 years, and that's a requirement by the Bureau of Nutrition and Health Services. Some of the language around how this wellness is being approached in curriculum was changed to indicate across multiple content areas. And then the final addition was just to add in superintendent designee in the case of some of our policies, so that if Dr. Lindemann has other district leaders who oversee some of the policies, he or she would have the ability to make those tweaks.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Tara? It's pretty straightforward. So, thanks, Tara. We'll look forward to having this on our agenda then in 2 weeks for the final reading. Well, the last two items on our agenda actually are the superintendent's report and then the information from us. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Lindemann.
Great. First of all, I guess most timely is today parents know that we had no school for students, and the reason we had no school is because our teachers were engaged in professional development as a district, and so some of that professional development happened district-wide, and some of that happened at the building levels. And so I just wanted to make sure that the board is thanked for approving a calendar that supports ongoing professional development throughout the year. Having these days spaced out so that we can continue the improvement model. Dr. McNulty and his staff really work hard to make sure that it's well done and that it's relevant and makes sense for the teachers who are participating in it. So, for example, one of the things that we had our career and technical education teachers, this day allowed them to travel to Des Moines to do a professional development day with the Des Moines Technical High School. And so we spent the day there. We did tours, we met with the principal, and we also had an opportunity for each teacher to connect with a like teacher. So if you teach, topic A or subject area A, then you got to meet with somebody else from Des Moines who teaches that same subject. And so I actually left, we had a board member who went with me, and I'm sure she's going to include a little bit in her summary comments, but we had to leave a little bit early to get back for this meeting, and they were still there going strong when we left. And so it was just a really great opportunity, and so those are the kind of things that we can do on a professional development day. So that is a wonderful gift from the board, and also from parents who make changes to their regular schedule so that we can do that kind of professional development. So I just wanted to address that a week from today we will be having a special board meeting. It is a workshop meeting, and it is not, there will be no action that's taken. It's just a meeting to process information that is coming out of the steering committee for the career and technical education. I have mentioned many, many times on my summary comments that we've had groups working on this. I believe over 3.5 years we've been working on this, and we are very, very proud of the recommendations that are coming forward at this point in time. So the next step is to get those recommendations to this board so that you can process them and ask questions and know what the committee is recommending. So again, that action, there will be no action taken at that meeting. It starts at 6 o'clock right here in this room. It will not be up here on the dais. It will be we will be sitting down where the audience is sitting right now, and have the board working, and we have lots of community members who are coming. The committee is coming, most of them, if they're able. I think there's a few that were not able to come because of scheduling conflicts, but I think it'll be a really great informational meeting, and then we'll process it at future meetings. So let's see. I also wanted to mention that I guess maybe a shout out to Hawkeye Community College for the diversity conference that they were able to schedule for and host for last Friday. It was really, I know several of us were there. Tara was there, and several people were there. Rhonda was there, and it was extremely well done. They had a presenter at the very beginning, and actually now that the camera's on me, I cannot think of the name. So I do know the name. He was
remarkable, though.
He was remarkable. It was fantastic, and those of us who were there, it was all that you could do to keep from applauding multiple times during the presentation. So it was just fantastic. So well done, Hawkeye, and we're glad that we were able to go. And then finally, I know that we do have a meeting between now and the parent-teacher conferences, but for planning purposes, anybody listening, please make sure that October 27th and 29th are on your calendar for parent-teacher conferences. Some schools have the student-led conferences, and so parents will be bringing students with them to process information, but those are on Tuesday, October 27th, and Thursday, October 29th, and those times are Tuesday evening, and then almost all day on Thursday. Teachers are available for that, so we find that very important. We really, really, really hope that we have 100% attendance, and if you do not come, we will be contacting you because we value your input, we value the communication with you. So, and then of course there would be no school on Thursday and Friday for kids. So that's it.
Great, thank you. You two are going to need a nap after your busy day down and back to Des Moines. So with that, I'd like to take information from our board members, and I'm going to start over here to my right with Mike Kinchy tonight.
I have nothing tonight, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Rhonda?
Well, I'd just like to say that keynote speaker was Dr. Christopher Emden.
Thank you.
Emden, E-M-D-I-N. So if you get an opportunity to look at some of his work regarding diversity in STEM, it's really awesome. The journey to Des Moines was awesome. I say journey because we literally walked through a building that was about the size of...
It was huge.
It was huge. But I was so edified with that today. One of the main things that I learned about the CTE program in Des Moines is that it's a gateway to all careers. And I hope that the citizens and the parents of Waterloo will consider really taking that into consideration. I had some assumptions before I went there, but I was very, very informed, very edified, and very impressed. And I really think that it's something that we could really duplicate here or initiate here as well. But again, the main thing is that there were so many CTE, for those who don't know, that's career and technical education. They had so many programs that are a gateway to all careers. So it's not the end all. And so I would hope that a lot of people think, if we do career and technical education, that doesn't mean you stop here. As a matter of fact, the Des Moines School, I think is Central Campus is what it's called. They encourage and they work very closely with DMAC. So it's like a pipeline. And so I think is really awesome. And the main thing that I gleaned from it is that CTE program allows students to think not just with their minds, but also with their hands. And I think a lot of us move away from career and technical education. And so I think we really need to get back to that. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Awesome. I like your 2 cents. Thanks. Sue?
Well, I wanted to piggyback. Jane had brought it up, and I had a couple parents ask me as far as the why they have these extra days off. And in turn, the teachers staff had professional development last year. It was just used in a different way. They used Wednesday afternoons, the early out. Thus, we don't have early out on Wednesdays. So I think, some parents had asked me why we had these Mondays off, and I said, this was the reason. So, and when we speak of character a little bit, I just wanted to applaud the West High football team and the Cedar Rapids Jefferson football team at the football game on Friday night at Memorial Stadium. The West High quarterback was hurt quite badly, and the whole Cedar Rapids Jefferson team, and this is something for you Boy Scouts, that the entire team in sportsmanship and because they cared, came and walked around the West High quarterback and formed around the gurney that he was on to go in the ambulance, and then the West team came over. And I just thought that's character, to care that much about your opponent, even though he's a very good athlete and But it just was character, and so applauding the West High kids and the Cedar Rapids Jefferson kids for that. And then also new addition at West High, there are new signs up in the parking lot. So if you go by West High, they're instilling some characters and have some banners up in the parking lot. So look up and look at those and adhere to the words on those banners. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that. One of the things I learned from today also is that central campus incorporates all of the high schools in that district in Des Moines. And so when we talk about character counts and we look at our comprehensive high schools, for example, East and West, and I listened to the athletic director talk about how we work together with our sports teams. One of the great things about that CTE Center is that it's a culmination of the homeschool district, the entire homeschool district in that area, and all of the high schools. So can you imagine we still maintain the integrity of our 2 high schools while also having a place where students can learn additional skills in a trade, but also working together. Talk about character counts. I think that really encompasses that. So I thought that was really good.
It's cool. Thank you. Okay, Angela.
The only thing that I have is just I wanted to thank Jesse for his comments in the last school board meeting in regards to our, what is it called? The astronomy club that his daughter is a part of. I was able to. I just finished a badge with the girls that I work with at my church on space, and we were able to go to the observatory. And his daughter and several of the middle school kids in the astronomy club at Hoover helped them kind of look at using telescopes and binoculars. I am educated. I swear. And I even went to school to be a science teacher. So, but they were able to. I mean, the girls were talking about that Sunday at church. Their parents were like, "Oh, this was so great," and so just thank you for talking about that. So that just left another opportunity and all those students go to our Waterloo schools. So another opportunity for them. So thank you.
Awesome, Jesse.
Well, I will echo Sue's comments on the game Friday night. It was a nice display of sportsmanship, and I had an opportunity to take a young man to the game. Him and his wife are new to the community, been here for a couple years, but they've come from Flint, Michigan by way of Dayton, University of Dayton, and you know, I've had a chance to go to some road games and stuff, and you know, a lot of times we talk about our facilities here and there, but he was quite impressed with our facility at Central. You know, the way our layout is. The visitor stands were not just, you know, shallow compared to the home stands and stuff, and in fact you kind of get to both sides, not have to walk around the track or stuff. So you know, from bringing somebody in from outside the area and having a compliment like that, I was pretty proud to hear that for our facilities and our programs. So
that's great, Jesse. I'm going to piggyback on that comment and move, because I'm a proud band mom. I'm going to move on to a competition that was held at Memorial Stadium. It's got multiple uses. On Saturday, West High hosted the state marching band competition. The state's divided into 8 regions, and we hosted 15 bands on Saturday. Waterloo did, and I was very proud to be there. I heard lots of comments from fellow travelers who had come to watch their kids march, and very proudly, both East and West received Division I ratings on Saturday. So that's super great. Yay. Yay, band! And with that, I don't have anything further unless anyone else does. Our next regularly scheduled meeting, I know Dr. Lindeman mentioned our workshop next Monday the 19th, will be October 26th, right back here in this room at 6 p.m. So if there isn't anything further, I would entertain a motion. Oh, hang on.
I just wanted to thank all of you Boy Scouts for coming tonight, and I hope you learned one thing tonight. And you can go home and tell your mom and dad how exciting it is to come to a school board meeting and that they should come.
Yay! No reaction. So, yes, thanks, guys. We appreciate Troop 29 being here tonight. Thanks very much. So, anything further? All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. And a second? I think we have multiple. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Chair votes aye. We're adjourned. Thank you. Have a great night.